Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Today I'm going to delve a little bit into early 1930s cinema, a film I just recently watched called This Is the Night, released in 1932 by Paramount. It's a romantic comedy. It kind of reinforces my belief that a movie doesn't have to be great to be good, and a movie doesn't even have to be good to be worth watching. There are a couple elements that make this movie worth taking a look at, even though it is a pretty flawed film for the most part. Now, it was directed by Frank Tuttle, prolific director in the late 20s into the 30s, 40s. Probably the only movie that he's, going to be known for was This Gun for Hire, starring Alan Ladd, Veronica Lake. Did a lot of sort of light comedies. And I got to be honest with you, I wasn't super impressed with his direction in this film. I think his pacing was off. Seemed to have people speed through stuff. Okay. So I don't think it's the greatest directed film of all time. It is based on a play called Push by Henri Falk and René Peter. It is, and that was translated into English in 1925 as Naughty Cinderella by Avery Hopwood, who was a big playwright back in the day. And it was made into another film in 1926, a silent picture called Good and Naughty, starring Paula Negri. So by the time we get to this, it's had about 4 incarnations, and it's actually a pretty good plot idea. I could even see it working as a romantic comedy today, maybe even as sort of a Hallmark movie if you maybe made a few little adjustments. Okay, so who's in this grand picture that we're looking at today? Stars Roland Young as Gerald Gray. Now, Roland Young, maybe best known for playing Topper in a few movies back in the 30s and 40s. One of those movies happens to be one of my favorite little comfort food kind of films that I'll put on quite often when I just want to get a little bit of a laugh. He sort of personifies the sort of milquetoast, if you know the term, sort of, I don't want to say kind of a wimpy guy, mild-mannered, always looks like a dude who's just kind of got his head down and he's trying to get through life. And it's kind of funny to see him looking as young as he does in this film. I think I've mostly seen him in things when he was older. Thelma Todd plays Claire Mathewson. She is Gerald's mistress, and you could maybe take that in a couple different ways. Thelma Todd, great talent, very funny lady, very beautiful. Died very young from carbon monoxide poisoning in a car in a garage. Some people think there was maybe foul play involved. Police ruled it an accident. Either way, she was 29 years old, and I think if she'd lived longer, she might be better remembered today. She was a woman who could hold her own with the Marx Brothers, with Laurel and Hardy, and she did some comedy shorts of her own, first with Zazu Pitts, later with Patsy Kelly. Really, really fantastic. And it's just one of those sad things about Hollywood where people are cut off way too early in life. Cary Grant has his debut in this film, playing Claire's husband, Stephen Mathewson. He's a javelin thrower on his way to the Olympics. He's actually kind of an interesting character. You don't really get the full impact of Cary Grant in this film, but it's a first movie, so that's kind of how it works. And, in later years, they would actually hype Cary Grant and Thelma Todd in the film because they were better known, even though they're not the main characters in the movie. You also get Charles Ruggles, one of the great voices of Golden Age Hollywood. You might remember him in Beverly Hillbillies. He was the roguish father-in-law of Milburn Drysdale. Did the voice of Aesop in the Aesop Fables bits on Rocky and Bullwinkle. Was in a lot of movies. funny guy, one of my favorites. Although, again, not really used to his full effect in this film. And maybe most importantly, and this is one of the key reasons if you're going to watch this movie, is Lily Damita. She's a French actress, born in France in 1904, came to, made some movies over in Europe, came to Hollywood in 1928. She was a veteran actress at this point, and she is really good in this movie. She's really better than the movie deserves in a lot of ways. So I figure let's kind of go through the overall plot. There will be some spoilers at a certain point. I'll put up the spoiler warning when we get to that point. And we'll kind of talk about the film, and I'll give you some ideas of, why I ended up at the end liking it, but also having some pretty big problems with it. And we'll get to all that. So this is the night. Paramount Picture, like I said, romantic comedy. It opens up in Paris, sort of showing the nightlife. It's kind of cloying and cutesy, to be honest with you, which is not rare for movies of this period, especially sort of light romantic comedies. There's a reason the Marx Brothers were as popular as they were, and that's because they spent a fair amount of time on screen mocking a lot of Hollywood's sort of cutesy conventions, as well as just mocking the elite in America and their great pretensions to be important and smart and etc. Oh, could we use the Marx Brothers right now? And when you watch the beginning of this, you kind of see that. And if you've only ever really watched the Marx Brothers, you don't necessarily know what it is they're making fun of if you don't watch a lot of other movies. So it's not a great opening. It's kind of cutesy. But we eventually do get to meet Gerald, played by Roland Young. He is out with his mistress, Claire. She makes her grand entrance out of the car, this limousine, at a nightclub. And the chauffeur accidentally shuts the door on her dress. And so she ends up undressed in front of the crowds. Now, obviously not naked, but like in her slip, and it's a good opportunity for him to show off Thelma Todd's legs. And so, she goes rushing with him back to the car. She's very embarrassed. And you get maybe one of the cringiest little musical numbers ever committed to film as the crowd is all sort of doing this little, it's awful. And if I hadn't been doing other things while watching the movie, I might at this point have just said, maybe I'll turn this off. It's terrible. And the fact that through some of the movie, it feels like they're rushing people a little bit on the lines. And you have to sit through not only this, but another little useless musical number going, man, you could have clipped those and taken your time a little bit more with the rest of the film. It's not good, and I was happy it was over. So they're heading back to her place so she can change clothes, or I guess put on some new clothes. And discussing, he's a little bit worried about her husband. She says, don't worry. He's a javelin thrower. He's heading off to the Olympics. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be around for a couple weeks. And she wants him to fire his chauffeur, which he's not really willing to do. But you're already getting this feeling of she's the dominant one in this relationship, and she's probably just toying with him, because you're going, this is not a super romantic, hero of lovemaking. This is Roland Young doing what he does. Meanwhile, Charles Ruggles is looking for Claire's apartment. He has a delivery to make. And while he's doing that, he's going to run into her husband, not knowing it's her husband. He's got his javelins there, obviously Cary Grant. And, they talk a little bit and yada, yada, yada. And eventually he figures out that he is actually looking for the apartment he's gone into. he has 2 tickets to Venice because apparently Claire and Gerald are going to run off to Venice to have a little bit of fun while hubby is away. And so he leaves his tickets and he's like, oh, well, I didn't, he's trying to kind of get out of it. And Cary Grant's pretty good at this. There's that sort of charming reserve, but you don't really get the full Cary Grant effect. And that's fine. He's a supporting actor in this one. You do get some great little Art Deco backgrounds and scenery, though. So then Gerald and Claire arrive, obviously having no idea that Stephen is there. And so the plot thickens. And he's obviously not real thrilled to see them arrive and to see his wife arrive wearing a coat but no dress. As we see Thelma Todd's legs. And so he's confronting her and he's confronting Gerald. And what they finally do is, to cover up what's going on, is Ruggles, his character's named Bunny West, not to be confused with Honey West, says, well, you know what? I'm an idiot. These 2 tickets I was supposed to deliver to Gerald's house, you see, for him and his wife. Claire, I was supposed to just deliver a single ticket here to Claire. Claire was going with Gerald and his wife to Venice while you were gone. There's nothing going on here. Stephen really doesn't buy it for a minute, and he says, well, that's fine then. I'll go along as well. We can make it doubles. And so that creates a problem. Gerald doesn't have a wife. So where are they going to find a wife? And obviously, Thelma Todd, not real thrilled about this, as she knows she's potentially going to get caught in what she's doing. Okay, so on the way home from all this, Gerald and Bunny, best friends, are trying to figure out what to do. They say, well, look, we'll hire a woman to play your wife for this, whatever they're going to be there for, a week or something. And then we're good. And he says, I know a woman. And she's an actress, like maybe a music hall actress named Shushu, and we'll hire her. And now one thing you got to sort of understand here, and this is maybe more of a concept of the 30s and 40s and even into the 50s, the good girl, the bad girl. Shushu is a bad girl, a woman of somewhat ill repute. And that's what they think they're going to be hiring. Well, she doesn't want to do it, but it turns out this woman named Germaine has appeared. She was sort of sleeping in this theater. She gets caught. She's hungry, and she says, "Hey, why don't you take this job? There'll be food. They'll feed you, And she's like, "Well, okay, I might as well. I got nothing else going on." Germaine is a good girl. They think they're hiring a bad girl. They're getting a good girl. They're going to call her Shushu for pretty much the rest of the film because they don't know who she really is. Shushu, of course, is played by Lily Damita and just does a fantastic job in this picture. So Bunny takes her home to meet Gerald. Here's your new wife. They're going over things. And the whole good girl, bad girl thing is important because Gerald is actually very loyal to Claire. And doesn't want any hanky-panky going on. And he doesn't really trust Shushu because he knows she's a bad girl. Meanwhile, she's just trying to get a sandwich, and she's like, I'll play along. I don't care. I'm at loose ends. And she's a little bit hurt at this too, kind of realizing what she's getting herself into, but she's going to press ahead. And there's a scene where she's, trying on things. I mean, you can see this is pre-code. It's a sexy comedy for the time period. Probably wouldn't be considered that. Now you get, filthier TV commercials now during children's shows than you probably get in pre-code movies, but there you go. So that's all planned. She's going to accompany them to Venice. Okay, next scene is at the train station to head off to Venice. We get another musical number. It is not as cringy as the first one, but there's really no damn point in it. It's like all the baggage guys beating out a little rhythm on the, anyways. Yeah. You're just kind of going, can we get over with this? And then there's also that point where you're going like, oh God, how many more of these are there going to be? No more. Thank you. So once we get through this musical number, we're on smoother sailing. So the plot now thickens again because Claire with Gerald gets a look at his wife, who's very, she's playing it up here. She's playing it very flirtatious, very sexy. And she is, dude, she's got some amazing, screen chemistry or screen charisma. Lily Damita does. She's really great in this. She's running laps around the other actors. And again, Thelma Todd probably could have played this role. Here she just kind of plays this sort of, kind of a jerk. Not a nice character and not a very fun character. And that's one of the problems I have with the movie is that it sort of wastes her abilities in this role. You did not need her to play this role. There's not enough funny stuff for her to do. Maybe it could have been written better, so there was, but it wasn't, and there you have it. But now all of a sudden she's like, whoa, I don't really like that my little Gerald is going to be pretending to be married to this woman. I think in her mind, they're going to hire an older woman, not real attractive, to play the part of the wife, and therefore she's going to be safe. And she's like, ooh, I got competition here. Worse yet, her husband, Stephen, seems to be a little bit interested in, and so is Bunny. So you kind of have this love rectangle here where all the guys are very interested in Shushu, and Claire is not liking any of it. And at first, really because it's sort of interfering with her little toy, Gerald, who she kind of leads around on a string. But it'll become deeper than that later. And so they get to Venice, and Gerald is still definitely kind of playing it straight here. He's like, listen, separate rooms, doors locked. He is really not there to mess around with her at all. He's definitely the least taken with her at first. And you also get the feeling with Stephen is he's taken with her, but he's really not fooled, and he's trying to prove that this is all a scam, But I think as he's talking to her, he's kind of like, oh, this is actually a pretty extraordinary woman, I don't know that you're not quite sure. Is he sort of falling for her, or is he pretending to sort of see if he can unravel the scam? But, Gerald is not having any of it. He's trying to be a good guy here. And a proper man. He's very much playing the proper sort of gentleman, although he is going out with a woman, having an adulterous sort of thing going with this woman. Vive la France, right? But just like, look at that image there, and look at Damita's eyes. Look at how she emotes there. There's a real vulnerability and a lot of just genuineness to her performance. It's really very good. So, and you can see now from that little scene there, Stephen and Claire, she's a little bit annoyed and getting a little bit jealous. And there's this nice scene where the two couples are having breakfast on their balconies. And, Gerald is they're Gerald and Shushu are trying to look like this loving married couple for Stephen's sake, who's probably not buying it anyways. This is annoying Claire, who's becoming jealous now of Gerald and this other woman who she doesn't trust the other woman, probably because she also knows this is probably not a good girl. So maybe she has reason to be worried that she's going to lose Gerald. And so at one point, Shushu, who's kind of having fun with it and is maybe becoming a little bit, affected by Gerald. She goes, hey, Stephen's looking, come over here. We gotta, And so Gerald sort of sits over next to her and kisses her. and sort of pulls back and then kisses her again. Oh, Gerald maybe just figured out that he kind of likes this woman, but keep in mind, he also thinks she's a bad girl. And so it's not somebody he's going to be able to really, become attached to. And I'm going to now put up the spoiler thing, because we are getting more into spoilery territory here. Again, it's not a real hard plot to figure out, but you might want to watch it, first time through on your own. So here we go from this point on. So they do the spoiler thing. I mean, they do the kissing. Gerald maybe is now a little bit more attracted to her than he was. Stephen has left, and boy, Claire is angry. And so Shushu puts on this little show of, oh, your kisses made me dizzy. I have to go lay down, and she leaves. She's kind of doing a whole, again, she's kind of having fun with it. And Claire is pissed, and she's like, telling Gerald, you get rid of her, and you get rid of her now, and I don't care what you do. I don't want her here anymore. And Milquetoast Gerald is sort of, okay, I guess we'll do it. So he goes in and tells her, okay, you know what? You're fired. We don't need you anymore. And she's kind of like, now remember, she's sort of in this because she's got no job. And, and she's like, okay, yes, I know. Okay, I overdid it a little bit. I'm sorry. I promise I won't do it again. No. You got to leave. It's not my problem. You got to leave. And now she gets a little angry. Now we're getting emotion from her. And she says, no, I am not going to leave because that woman said so. You are like a puppy dog, she controls you and all. She kind of reads him the riot act and storms into her room. Again, great scene from her. Just very genuine. She's really good in this role. That day, she's out and about, and she has a meeting with Stephen. And they sit down at the cafe, and they're talking. And here's the point where you're going, is he hitting on her, or is he testing her? Or maybe he's doing a little bit of both. And he says, well, your husband obviously is very fond of my wife, and she's trying, what are you saying? He's not buying it. And he says, well, maybe since they're got a little fling, maybe we could console one another. And she pulls away, and I think he kind of sees, he knows this isn't real, but she's actually being loyal to her fake husband. I think it kind of impresses him. But then she sees that Gerald is watching them and takes his hands again. She's trying to make Gerald jealous. You see, the emotions are all shifting around here. She does a really good job with it. And this is like a publicity still, but you can see very sexy, very flirtatious when she wants to be. But she does really great dramatic scenes as well. And I'm kind of going, I maybe need to watch some more of her movies. I think I've seen one other film she was in where she was with Victor McLaughlin. I'm not positive, though. The name of it looked familiar. But she's really good in this. I was really impressed. And so Gerald then confronts Stephen, and I'll thank you not to hold my wife's hand in public or at all, and yada, yada, yada. And Stephen sort of walks away laughing because he's like, oh man, like he knows this is fake, but he's like, whoa, something's happening here. This is great. Their whole plot is falling apart because they're starting to fall in love with each other, and he's having a good old time. And as he leaves, Bunny arrives, and Bunny and Gerald are like, we got to come up with something. Things are getting out of hand. And Bunny says, hey, because he's a little interested too, I will show up tonight with a ladder. I'll climb up. I will sweep her away on a gondola ride. Very romantic. We'll get rid of her that way. And Gerald's not really all that sure. Oh, and here we still have a couple pictures from that cafe scene. Sorry. Okay. He's not real sure about it. So we now get that night, and this is where it all comes to a head. Gerald's on the balcony again with Shushu, and she's listening to this gondolier sing this song in Italian. And Gerald says, well, I know the English I know the song in English. And he's telling her the words, and it's very romantic, moonlight. And he kisses her again. He's kind of overcome by passion. And this is a real kiss. And it's a little startling to both of them. She's not necessarily against it, but he's kind of surprised by himself. And another really great scene from her. By this point in time, I'm like, I'm kind of watching this for her performance. It's really good. Everybody else is fine. She's really good. And you could see, and give the director credit here, man. Great lighting on her. Just, she emotes beautifully. It just really works. So, but everything starts to fall apart. She and he having that moment, it's kind of startles them. He says, I think you better stay in tonight, because he knows about Bunny's plan and he doesn't want him to go through with it now at this point. Why don't you stay in? She says, I think I should leave. I think I'm going to leave in the morning. It's gone too far. Okay, that's fine. But tonight I want you in your room because I'm responsible for you. Yada, yada. She goes into the room. She gets in there and there's Bunny. He's drunk. He's climbed up the ladder. He wants to take her away. She's explaining she's leaving. And here's where sort of he starts to find out she's not who he thought she was. She's taking off the jewelry. She says, I'm sorry. I had no job. I needed something. I'm going to take just enough money to get back to Paris. It's over. I'm sorry. And he's kind of like, oh, this is not the girl I thought I was. And meanwhile, Claire shows up at the door, and she's now sort of changed her tune a little bit. Now it isn't, I want her gone because I'm jealous of you. She says, I think she's after my husband, and he's handsome and rich, and I'm not going to lose him. And Gerald's like, oh, okay. I thought we were doing this whole thing because you had a thing for me. Now you don't give a crap about me. Okay. This is the split up between Gerald and Claire. It's definitely over. And now Gerald's thinking, well, maybe that's okay. Maybe I'd rather have Shushu anyways. And the hell with Claire. Well, at that same time, Bunny is leaving. And he, like I said, he's drunk. And Italian police have found his ladder. And they're moving the ladder around. Now, he's drunk. He doesn't realize the ladder's actually moving. He finally gets a hold of it, and he falls off the balcony into the canal. And the Italian police start yelling, burglar, burglar, burglar. Stephen hears this. He dashes out onto his balcony, jumps onto the neighboring balcony of Gerald and Shushu, and heads into this room while Shushu is getting undressed as Claire and Gerald walk in. And they're like, aha, what's going on here? And Stephen is like, they were yelling burglar. I came in to see what was happening. And Gerald now is like, oh, she is just kind of a tramp. I guess I was stupid all along. And Claire's more annoyed than ever with her husband, like she has a right to be. And it's interesting because you get the feeling here that Stephen is more pissed off that Gerald is accusing her of bad behavior than of accusing him. But Gerald's finally had enough, and he says, look, this was a scam. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Hired this girl, and apparently, she's open to everybody, and she's going to leave, and I'm going to leave, and that's the end of that. And This obviously hurts Shushu very much. Stephen leaves with Claire. Shushu finishes getting dressed. She leaves, gets into a gondola. At that point, the Italian police show up with Bunny, who's drenched. They're going a mile a minute in Italian, and nobody knows what they're saying at first. Stephen wanders in, and he says, I speak the language, and find out, oh, this was the burglar. He wasn't lying after all. And Gerald's like, oh, crap, you know. And so Bunny's like, she left, dude. She's leaving. She's going back to Paris. Gerald rushes out to find her. And we get the final sort of moment between Gerald and Claire storming off. And she gets her final comeuppance as she leaves the room, and the chauffeur closes the door on her dress, and you get one more shot of Thelma Todd's legs rushing across to her husband's apartment. And that's the last we see of them, and we can kind of hope that he divorces her, because she's pretty awful. Really, she is the villain of the piece. Shushu, Germaine, we should really say, is heading off in the gondola. Gerald finds another one, heads after her, catches up to her, and kind of jumps onto it, and he says, I don't want you to leave. And at first she thinks, okay, hey, I'm not that kind of girl. He says, because I want to marry you. And she's surprised. And as they go under this bridge, this policeman is chatting up this flower girl, you know, and kisses her, and the basket of flowers, dumps, and petals are landing on their gondolier as they go through, and their gondolier goes off into the moonlight, and we actually don't know if she says yes, but it's pretty well implied. All right, so what do we do with This Is the Night? It's got a lot of flaws. Like I said, the timing, comedy timing is not great. I put that down to direction. They feel like they're rushing through lines a lot of times. There's a couple terrible musical numbers that don't need to be there. The other problem for me is not so much a matter of performances, but a matter of miscast people and folks not getting to really do what they're capable of. Cary Grant's one of them. Sorry, dog was barking. 3, 2, 1. Cary Grant is one of those actors. Obviously, we know he's capable of quite a bit. This is his debut, though. So I can't be too upset about that they didn't really use him to his full potential. But in a way, it is kind of like, you can get more out of Cary Grant than this. And Cary Grant, seeing this movie with a friend, was like, that was horrible. I don't think I'm going to do any more movies. And his friend talked him down. But he thought the whole concept was stupid, that this man would never tolerate this kind of behavior from his wife and would not play along with it. You know, listen, Cary, this is movies, baby. And he came around, thankfully. So you don't get everything you could out of Cary Grant. Charles Ruggles has a particular comic style, and he sort of has to play against it in this one. He's a little bit sillier and a little bit goofier. And if they had allowed him to play it in his more sort of reserved, sarcastic way, I think it would have been a lot better in terms of the Bunny character. So again, just kind of a misused actor there. Same with Thelma Todd, capable of so much more. And really, you could have picked a whole lot of people to play this role. It just wasted her, you know. Roland Young is pretty good. I think if they could have spent more time, he sort of goes from reserved and I'm not having anything to do with this to, hey, I kind of like this girl, a little bit too quick. I would have liked to have seen that develop more. That's not his fault. Again, I put that down to the director. Perfect, though, characterization for him as this sort of milksop who's being domineered by this woman who really just wants to use him to have somebody to spend money on her and take her out when her husband's away, and obviously is willing to throw him away at the end when she's afraid she's going to lose her rich, handsome husband. And he plays it well. And it's interesting to see him sort of have to be the romantic lead in something. Not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. But again, Lily Damita is the reason to watch the movie. She's fantastic, very authentic, just a lot of vulnerability, a lot of charisma. She just rings around everybody else in the film, frankly, as an actress. And so I would say if you want reasons to watch This Is the Night, her performance is one, and seeing the debut of Cary Grant would be the other. I'd say 90% watch it for her, 10% watch it for his debut as a sort of historical moment in film, but she's really the reason to watch this movie. But overall, by the end of it, I rather liked it. I'd say once you get past that second musical number, it improves quite a bit. Again, could have been, I think, directed a little bit better, but overall, not a bad little picture. And pretty good for 32. It's a different sort of style of humor at that point, so they don't always translate that well. This one I thought did pretty good. And I think it's actually a great plot. You could do this in a romantic comedy to this day. The little entanglements and seeing how the emotions shift and change and become, a lot of lying becomes genuine emotion. It's kind of a nice little move. So there we go. This Is the Night, 1932, Paramount Pictures. Lily Damita, Roland Young, Charles Ruggles, Thelma Todd, and this brand new fresh face, Cary Grant. Maybe go check it out. I found it online. Sure, you could find it as well. So have you ever seen this movie? If so, what did you think? If you have any questions about the movie, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll answer everything as quickly as I can, assuming it's something I can answer. If you enjoyed this little review, please give it a like. Maybe think of subscribing and sharing with a friend. I do a lot of pop culture stuff of all kinds through the 20th century into the 21st century as well. Just stuff that I like that I want to share with other people. You'll find that this is generally a pretty positive place if you're kind of tired of some of the negativity out there. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun. And I'll see you again, hopefully, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.